Yes, you can create your gradient like this.
Jamaila?
Hello YouTube. Today we learn gradient tools and how to create a custom gradient in Photoshop. So let begins. So first open a Photoshop and create a new document size whatever you like. I mostly prefer 9020 by 180 size of document. So first learn a gradient. We simply introduce a gradient tool in a toolbar. Here a rectangle that indicate gradient tool. Their shortcut is G. After clicking this tool, you can see a change in the upper toolbar section. So this is a gradient setting. So first there is a rectangle of gradient that say click to edit the gradient. We simply click on that downward button. There is a lots of shades of gradient are here. You can see there is a shade of color gradient available in Photoshop. First, we click on basic color gradient. There is a type of gradient like foreground color to background color. And click on outer side and simply click on document. Set the direction of the gradient. You can see foreground and background color combined gradient is created in our document. You can also change the direction of the gradient like this. Second type is foreground to transparent gradient. I simply click on that and set the direction of the gradient. You can see foreground and transparent color combination of gradient is created here. You can also add a gradient by clicking like this. Third one is black and white. This gradient like only come in black and white color like this. Then after the basic gradient color zone, there is a color gradient like blue, purple, pink, red, etc. In Photoshop, there is a default color gradient are there like in blue, there is a 1 to 32 blue color shades of gradient are there. I personally recommended use this gradient in your design, not use change in color of foreground and background. Photoshop gives you best and beautiful color of gradient, so use this default gradient. After using this default color gradient, how can we create a custom gradient you can see in a thumbnail of this video. So here, right side of this panel, there is a setting icon. I simply click on that and click a new gradient preset. The gradient editor panel are open. There is a preset color we see in the default gradients. Then name. Whatever name you can given to this gradient. I simply take gradient 1. Okay. Gradient type solid or noise. I simply click on noise. Roughness means how rough your gradient you take. I simply increase and decrease roughness. You can see below change of gradient roughness. I recommended it is go for 50%. Color mode RGB, check mark to restricted colors. If you want to add transparency, you can check. I uncheck to this option and randomize. What is randomize? You can see change the random number of this gradient means you can click this button, you can see gradients are changes. You can randomize your gradient n number of this color, that is the trick, and click create a new button. Now you can see a new gradient pattern are added here for the name of gradient 1. Then close the gradient editor, click on gradient 1 and simply apply on my document. You can see beautiful mixture of gradient we created. Now, how can we save this gradient? Because after closing this file, Photoshop was lose a gradient automatically. So we must save this custom gradient. I simply right click on it and click a new gradient group. You can name it for my gradient and click a OK button. Our my gradient group are created here. So I simply drag a gradient 1 and drop into this group. Now this file Photoshop not lose this gradient, it is saved for lifetime. So if you right click on your custom gradient, there is an instruction. First, append default gradient. You can click this button, then whatever you was created a custom gradient are deleted and add a Photoshop default gradient. Second is import gradient. Before we knowing about import gradient, we knew about export gradient. So I simply click on that. There is a window for exporting gradient. I simply give a name called my gradient. Also remember that the gradient file are only in GRD files. I simply click on save button. So here my custom gradient is saved in my computer. So you can share your gradient in friends. Then rename gradient. It is change your name of gradient and delete your gradient. Then I go to a import gradient. So last I exported my gradient. I simply click on that and click a load button. So you can import and export your custom gradient. Now what is this part? This 5 square is a direction of the gradient. First is a linear gradient, second is a radial gradient, third is an angle, fourth is a reflected, and fifth is a diamond. I click on first one and be aware of creating a new layer. Their shortcut is Ctrl plus Shift plus N, or simply click this plus icon. So I click and drag in a straight direction. You can see this line are not proper in direction. So I simply hold a shift key. You can see direction of go only a 90 degree or 45 degree. I simply go to a 90 degree. You can see we created a custom gradient are in document. You can change in also linear gradient. Second is a radial gradient. I click on this icon and simply click and drag a mouse from center of this document. You can see gradient direction is a radial pattern. You can also change a location of the gradient like this. Third is the angle gradient. This gradient spread in angle. You can change any angle of direction of this gradient like this. Fourth one is a reflected gradient. It is same like a linear gradient. And last one is a diamond gradient. This gradient create a diamond pattern of this gradient like this. Then this is a blending modes. Opacity, you can change your gradient opacity. I simply take it for 40 degree. You can see here our gradient opacity is reduces. Reverse. If you want to reverse your gradient like this, so you can change. Dither means it is reduces the bending. I recommended 2 check mark here. And transparency. If you want to transfer your gradient, so I check mark here. So this is the setting of this gradient. I hope you can understand this setting and try to create a new gradient and stay tuned for my new video. If you don't have a Photoshop, link in the description, grab it and install now. Thank you for watching my video. If you like this video, share, like and subscribe my channel. Be Iconic signing off.